Lagos ever built a museum dedicated to dangerous husbands, Barrister Femi wouldn't just have a plaque on the wall. He'd have an entire VIP wing. Tall, handsome, articulate, and polished like a man carved out of PR dreams. He walked through the world with the confidence of someone who had never been challenged. Outsiders adored him. Church members called him the Pillar. His colleagues praised his brilliance in court. Even strangers admired the way he carried his children's pictures like campaign posters, always smiling, always charming. But behind closed doors, the smile dissolved into something colder, sharper. Inside his home, where cameras didn't flash and applause didn't echo, Tara, his wife, didn't call him honey, dear, or even Femi. She called him sir, not out of respect, out of fear. Every compliment he received outside became a weapon inside. Every family man award he earned in public became another mask he wore at home. Tara, once bright and soft-spoken, had been slowly disappearing in plain sight. Her friends said she looked stressed. Her mother called her withdrawn. But no one knew the truth, that her husband's voice could quiet a room the same way thunder silences birds. He controlled her phone, her sleep, her clothes, her decisions, and with each passing month, her reflection grew dimmer. Still, she stayed, praying things would change, praying the man she married at 26 would return. But the museum-worthy monster standing in her living room was no accident, no phase. He was a masterpiece of manipulation, and Tara was the only one forced to live with the exhibit every day. And this was only the beginning. To the world, Barrister Femi O was the husband every Lagos woman prayed for. Eloquent, polished, calm, and composed. He spoke English so flawless it could silence a noisy courtroom. His voice alone could thaw chaos. But inside his home, the same voice became a lock on every door, every dream, every breath Tara took. Their house wasn't a home. It was a beautifully furnished prison where the jailer never raised his voice outside, but roared like a lion inside. Femi monitored Tara the way an employer monitors a suspect employee, tracking her phone, questioning her movements, policing her relationships. If she slept early, she was lazy. If she woke before him, she was sneaking. If she prayed quietly, she was rebellious. Every action, simple or pure, became an accusation waiting to explode. And Tara? She became a shadow tiptoeing through her own life, afraid to breathe too loudly. The children noticed long before the adults did. They saw their mother shrink, day after day, under the weight of a man who preached love outside but practiced control inside. They watched their father turn the house into a battlefield disguised as a holy sanctuary. If Tara spoke, she was disrespectful. If she kept quiet, she was plotting evil. Femi's spiritual manipulation turned every argument into a sermon, every fear into disobedience, every tear into witchcraft. And at the center of it all stood Tara, a woman trapped between who she once was and who he forced her to become. She didn't know it yet, but the day was coming when the walls of this private prison would crack, and the world would finally hear her cry for help. Femi didn't raise his children, he armed himself with them. Every innocent hug, every question, every moment of affection became a tool he twisted to break their mother. In public, he proudly carried their photos like campaign flyers, telling judges, pastors, and strangers, "I practically raised these children alone." But at home, he used their little hearts like shields and spears. If Tara disciplined them gently, he accused her of being a wicked mother. If the children ran to hug her after school, he snatched them away with a cold, tight smile. "Don't disturb your mother. She's resting." The message was clear. Love belonged to him, loyalty belonged to him, even the children's memories belonged to him. And slowly, painfully, Tara watched her babies question the warmth they once felt for her. Yet children have a truth adults often lose: instinct. They saw the way their father's voice changed when visitors left. They heard the late-night insults through thin walls, the banging doors, the broken glass. They watched their mother shrink into silence while their father grew louder, stronger, more righteous. They learned to hide their tears and tiptoe around his moods. One night, after another of Femi's rage-filled sermons, their oldest whispered to Tara, trembling, "Mummy, are we safe?" That question cracked something in her heart. It was the moment she realized the abuse wasn't just hers to carry. Her children were bleeding emotionally too, even if not a single mark showed on their skin. Tara was once the kind of woman whose presence lit up a room, bright-eyed, hard-working, soft-spoken but confident. At 26, she walked into marriage believing she had found a partner, a future, a life she could build with joy. But by 34, her reflection told a different story. The woman in the mirror looked older, drained, almost unrecognizable. Her glow had dimmed beneath years of psychological warfare disguised as love and leadership. Femi's constant belittling, his twisting of every situation, his righteous anger that always ended with, "Look what you made me do," chipped away at her identity until Tara wasn't living. She was enduring. She doubted her thoughts, second-guessed her feelings, apologized for things she didn't do. Even when she tried speaking up, he spun her words so artfully that she began to wonder if she was losing her mind. And that's exactly what he wanted. Friends didn't notice. His mother dismissed her concerns. Even her pastor believed the narrative Femi crafted. Tara is unstable. Tara is rebellious. Tara needs spiritual correction. They watched the surface. The perfect husband, the polished lawyer, the man who prayed loudly every morning. They never stayed long enough to hear the threats that followed the prayers. And so Tara became a silent victim, trapped between fear and confusion. She thought she was the problem. She thought something inside her was broken. She didn't know the truth yet. She wasn't breaking. She was being broken. And somewhere deep inside, a small voice still whispered, "This is not who you are." Every morning, Femi wrapped himself in his pristine white prayer shawl like a holy armor, chanting scriptures loud enough for the entire compound to hear. To outsiders, he was the model Christian husband, disciplined, devoted, spiritually awakened. But Tara knew the truth. The louder his prayers became, the more dangerous he was that day. He weaponized scripture with surgical precision. A wise woman builds her home, he would remind her after humiliating her. "Submit," he whispered when she flinched. "Forgive 70 times 7, he recited after every outburst. By the time he finished twisting the Bible into chains, she would start apologizing to the very man who hurt her. And that was his mastery. He didn't just gaslight her mind, he gaslit her faith. He made her believe that God was on his side. At church, he raised his hands the highest. At home, he raised his voice the quickest. And when Tara tried to confide in their pastor, Femi got there first, spinning a tale so polished that it made her look like the unstable one. Even her tears were interpreted as rebellion. She stopped praying as freely as she used to, out of fear that God himself might be disappointed in her. Yet deep in her spirit, something still rebelled. A small spark, a quiet resistance, a whisper, "God is not in this." That whisper would become the beginning of her awakening. The night it happened, the air inside the house felt swollen, thick with unspoken tension that Tara could barely breathe through. Femi returned from work with that familiar storm behind his eyes, the one that always warned her to step quietly, swallow words, shrink her presence. But even her silence enraged him. One wrong glance, or what he decided was wrong, became the spark. He accused her of disrespect, of ingratitude, of provoking a man after a long day. His voice rose like a tide crashing against the walls, louder, sharper, until the whole house vibrated with it. Tara backed away, palms trembling, but he followed with that awful, purposeful calm. Then suddenly, crash! The window shattered under the force of his hand slamming a nearby object. Glass sprayed across the floor like scattered tears. Tara froze, heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her throat. And then came the line that broke her spirit more than the glass. "Look what you made me do." He said it with the confidence of a man who believed his violence was her responsibility. He watched her tremble and mistook it for guilt, not fear. She wanted to run, to scream, to fight. But trauma had already taught her its cruel lesson. Survival sometimes looks like stillness. So she knelt quietly, picking shards with shaking fingers while he stood over her, breathing hard. It was in that quiet humiliation, that fragile stillness, that Tara finally confronted a truth she had been terrified to name. This wasn't anger, it was escalation. And the next time, she might not escape with just a broken window. The morning after the broken window, Tara moved through the house like a ghost, silent, careful, terrified that even her breathing might offend him. While sweeping the last of the glass, her eyes kept drifting to the small crack on her phone screen, almost mirroring the crack inside her chest. She wasn't allowed friends. She wasn't allowed visitors. She wasn't allowed help. But there was one thing Femi couldn't fully control: her Facebook account. He monitored it, yes, but not always immediately. And that sliver of delay became the doorway she needed. With trembling hands, Tara typed a simple post, one she prayed wouldn't raise his suspicion. "Does anyone know a good carpenter who can help fix a broken window urgently? Please inbox me." It looked harmless, ordinary, but every word was soaked in quiet desperation. Within minutes, messages began to pop up, not about carpenters, but soft, cautious check-ins from women who recognized the coded distress. One message hit her heart like a beam of light in a dark tunnel. "Are you safe? Blink twice on video call if you're not. I won't tell anyone." It came from an old schoolmate she hadn't spoken to in years, someone who had once escaped her own nightmare. Tara stared at the message, tears burning her eyes. For the first time in months, someone saw her, truly saw her. She knew Femi could walk in at any moment, but she also knew something else. Silence was no longer protecting her. So with a courage she didn't think she still had, she replied with 2 words that felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. "Please help." Tara's whispered message, "Please help," ignited something powerful in her old friend, Zainab, who moved immediately but silently, like a shadow with purpose. They couldn't expose anything yet. That would only make Femi more dangerous. Instead, Zainab began guiding Tara through small, careful acts of resistance. "Document everything," she advised. "Even the things you think are too small to matter." And so, each day, beneath the weight of Femi's cold gazes and unpredictable moods, Tara collected fragments of her truth. Photos of bruises taken in dim bathroom light. Voice memos recorded under blankets when he shouted about her disobedience. Screenshots of threatening texts, snapped before he could delete them. Each piece was a seed of freedom, hidden in a secret cloud folder labeled recipes. Tara felt fear every single time she saved something, but also a spark of strength. All the while, Femi continued his life, smug and unaware, believing she had broken. But a quiet war had begun, one he couldn't see and therefore couldn't stop. Zainab coached her on how to stay calm, how to pretend, how to survive long enough to gather enough truth. Tara played her part flawlessly, even offering him tea with steady hands, while her phone recorded his insults from her apron pocket. And as the evidence grew, so did her resolve. She started to realize something terrifying and empowering at once. This was no longer just survival. It was preparation. Preparation for the day when the mask would drop, the truth would rise, and everything he'd hidden behind charm and English boy politeness would finally collapse under the weight of his own cruelty. The countdown had quietly begun. By day, Barrister Femi O wore the kind of charm that disarmed even the sharpest minds. His neighbors adored him. Church members praised his godly marriage. His clients described him as intelligent, warm, articulate. The kind of man who treats his wife like a queen. That polished persona was his armor, his camouflage, his costume for the world. But inside the mansion, when no one was watching, a different creature emerged. The mask slipped, the tone hardened, the smile vanished. His eyes, usually soft and kind in public, turned calculating, cold, almost predatory. This duality wasn't accidental. It was crafted. Femi curated his image with the precision of a curator arranging priceless artifacts. He never raised his voice outside, never argued in public, never slipped. He needed the world to believe Tara was the unstable one, because narcissists survive on illusion, and he was a master illusionist. Meanwhile, Tara watched this transformation with a familiarity that haunted her. The world saw an angel. She slept beside a storm. The contrast became her torture. Every compliment he received felt like another brick in her psychological prison. But as she quietly gathered evidence, she began to notice cracks forming in his once perfect facade. His paranoia grew. His questions became sharper. Who were you texting? Why did you take so long at the store? The mask he had polished for years began to tremble under the pressure of the truth she was collecting. And in those moments, brief but telling, Tara realized something powerful. The man who once terrified her was now terrified of losing control. It was April 2024 when Femi's control turned into outright terror. Tara had gathered small fragments of courage, whispering to herself that she could survive another day. But that evening, he cornered her in their sleek, silent kitchen. The kind of kitchen that gleamed in public photos but felt like a cage at night. His eyes were sharp, the smile gone, replaced with a chilling intensity. "If you leave me," he said slowly, savoring each word, "I will destroy your name. I am a lawyer. I know people." The threat wasn't vague. It wasn't idle. It hung over her like a guillotine. He was promising ruin, promising pain, promising that the world she had built, even her children, would turn against her. For a moment, Tara froze, every instinct screaming that she was trapped. But fear, for the first time, sparked something else. Clarity. She realized that she couldn't outfight him physically, and that fleeing blindly would be deadly. Instead, she would outsmart him. Every text, every screenshot, every voice note became ammunition. Every witness, every neighbor, every proof of his terror would become her shield. The threat, terrifying as it was, crystallized a truth Tara had avoided. Survival required strategy. Courage alone wouldn't save her. Evidence would. And for the first time, she understood that her quiet resistance, her careful documentation, and the shadows of secrecy she now navigated weren't just survival. They were preparation for justice. Femi's threat was meant to break her, but instead, it lit the path to her freedom. By May 2024, Tara and Zainab noticed something strange. Femi's connections, those carefully cultivated networks that had once protected him, were beginning to crumble. Calls went unanswered. Promises of favors evaporated. His senior colleague suddenly resigned. The commissioner who had always looked out for him was mysteriously transferred. Even the pastor who had publicly defended him for years disappeared on indefinite travel. To the world, these were coincidences. To Tara, each disappearing ally felt like invisible hands clearing the path, whispering, "The truth is rising." Fear and hope warred in her chest. She had been taught all her life to rely on herself, and now she had to learn to trust that some forces were bigger than her fear, bigger than Femi, bigger than the years he'd held her captive. Every day, she documented, strategized, and prayed. She felt the weight of years of abuse pressing down, but also the strange lightness that came with realizing she was no longer completely alone. Femi, meanwhile, sensed the shifting sands beneath him. His arrogance faltered. For the first time, he wondered if the people who had always bent to his will might fail him when he needed them most. And as he looked around at the empty echoes of loyalty, Tara realized something profound. The system he had manipulated for years was no longer his fortress. It was his trap. Divine intervention? Pure coincidence? Tara didn't care. She was ready to finish what she had started. Tara had learned that courage alone would not save her. It could get her killed. So she embraced strategy. Every move she made was deliberate, calculated, cloaked in the appearance of obedience. Femi still prowled the house, his eyes scanning for any misstep, his questions like traps. Why are you on your phone? Who did you speak with today? Each encounter was a reminder that one false step could undo months of careful planning. Yet Tara pressed on, sending voice notes and videos to Zainab from a burner phone she kept hidden beneath laundry baskets. Every screenshot, timestamp, and recording was a small victory, a shield against the man who had long weaponized fear and faith against her. Even as she worked in silence, her heart thudded like war drums. She set traps for evidence, captured patterns of abuse, collected metadata, and documented threats. Each proof point a tiny rebellion that made the mansion feel slightly less like a cage. She realized something crucial. Survival wasn't about overpowering Femi. It was about outsmarting him, preserving her mind, her children, and her story. The quiet, relentless gathering of truth became her armor. With every recorded word, every time-stamped photo, Tara edged closer to freedom. Strategy, not strength, was now her weapon, and she wielded it with a precision born of desperation, hope, and the unwavering whisper inside. This ends on my terms. It was a quiet evening, the kind where shadows linger longer than usual and tension hangs in the corners of every room. Femi had returned from work, simmering with silent rage, his eyes calculating, the air around him thick with the weight of the day. Tara sat with the children, trying to appear calm, trying to measure every word and every breath. But 9-year-old Chinidu, wise beyond his years, had been watching, listening, and understanding more than his mother realized. He had seen the broken windows, heard the yelling, felt the trembling of his mother's hands, and sensed the fear in her eyes. That night, he whispered softly, almost trembling himself, "Mummy, leave him before he kills you." The words hit Tara like a hammer, reverberating through her chest. Fear, shock, and clarity collided in that single sentence. It was not judgment, not rebellion, it was love. In that moment, something shifted inside Tara. The years of denial, the mental chains forged by Femi's control, the silent endurance. Everything converged into one undeniable truth. She was in danger, and her children had been watching, learning, and suffering along with her. Chinidu's plea became the spark she needed to ignite the fire of action. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting these innocent lives, about reclaiming their right to safety, to laughter, to normalcy. That night, fear and courage intertwined, forming a resolve stronger than any threat Femi could throw. Tara whispered back, her voice trembling but firm, "We're going to be safe. I promise you that." And with that promise, the journey from survival to strategy moved into a decisive new chapter. On a fateful day, a date that would forever be etched in Tara's memory, Femi returned home in a foul mood. His promotion had been delayed, and he needed someone to blame. The air was heavy with his rage, thick and suffocating, the kind that made even the walls of the mansion seem to shrink. He shouted, insulted, and hurled accusations like knives. Chairs toppled. The children huddled silently, knowing better than to intervene. Tara felt the familiar terror clawing at her chest, a fear she had carried for years. But that night, something inside her shattered. The last fragile thread of obedience, of hope that he might change, of belief in silent endurance. Her oldest child, Chinidu, whispered from behind her, trembling, "Mummy, leave him before he kills you." That tiny voice, born of innocence and fear, cracked open the dam of years she had been holding back. In that moment, tears streamed freely down her face, Not in shame, not in guilt, but in raw, liberating truth. She realized she had survived every manipulation, every blow, every lie, and she could survive the act of leaving. With hands shaking but heart resolute, she sent the message that would change everything. I'm ready. I'm done. Let's finish this. That night marked not the end of fear, but the beginning of action. The years of silent endurance, the careful documentation, the whispered prayers, they all converged into a single, fearless decision. Tara would reclaim her life, her children, and her freedom. The journey had begun. After that night, Tara knew she couldn't act alone. Femi's manipulation extended beyond the walls of the mansion. He had allies, influence, and a reputation that made anyone hesitant to help her. But Tara had something stronger: strategy, faith, and the unwavering support of her family. She moved to her parents' home, a safe haven that smelled like home-cooked meals and unconditional love. Her younger sister became her constant shadow, a protector, confidant, and co-conspirator in the quiet war against a dangerous man. Each morning, Tara prayed not just for courage, but for wisdom. Every night, she reviewed the evidence she had collected: voice notes, videos, screenshots, patterns of abuse. Fear lurked in every heartbeat, but it was harnessed into focus. She knew that moving too soon could be fatal, yet waiting too long could mean another violent outburst. Balance was essential. Meanwhile, Femi carried on with his life, oblivious to the fortress forming against him. But Tara's growing network, family, trusted friends, and Zainab, worked tirelessly, combining prayer, strategy, and discreet surveillance. They created a plan that would not only protect her and the children, but also ensure the truth could no longer be denied. Every small action, each recorded threat, every time-stamped video, every documented pattern, was a calculated move in a chess game she could no longer afford to lose. And Tara, once silent and scared, began to feel a strange power. The realization that even in fear, preparation, and faith could turn the tables on the man who had long held her life hostage. March 2025 arrived with Lego sunlight cutting through the courtroom windows like spotlights on a stage, revealing a drama years in the making. Tara stepped in, her hands trembling slightly, but her heart fortified by months of preparation, prayer, and strategy. Behind her sat her sister and a trusted church friend, silent guardians of truth. Across the room, Femi entered with his signature calm, polished smile, like a man stepping into his own theater. The gallery buzzed with whispers. This was no ordinary domestic dispute. It was a reckoning. Every eye was on them, every mind wondering if the man who commanded respect outside would crumble under the weight of the evidence inside. Opening statements set the tone. Femi's lawyer spun a narrative of betrayal and instability, painting Tara as vengeful, emotional, and manipulative. Every word was calculated, every gesture rehearsed. But Tara's lawyer countered with precision: time-stamped recordings, metadata-verified videos, medical reports, and witness statements that revealed a relentless pattern of coercive control. The courtroom tension was palpable, every lie met with unshakable proof. The gallery held its breath as truth and performance collided. And in that charged atmosphere, Tara realized the power of preparation. The quiet months of fear, documentation, and prayer were transforming into unstoppable justice. The masks were cracking, and for the first time, the man who had ruled her world with intimidation felt the heat of exposure. Femi rose to speak, his polished demeanor on full display. He smiled, leaned forward, and addressed the judge in a voice smooth enough to melt doubt. "Tara is a good woman," he began, glancing at the children. "But tempers rose, misunderstandings happened. I have never harmed my wife. These claims are exaggerated, orchestrated to damage my reputation. Every syllable was calculated, every gesture rehearsed. An actor in his own courtroom drama." He hugged the children, spoke of devotion and love, and even feigned contrition. To an untrained eye, he appeared reasonable, even pitiable. The gallery murmured, some softening in sympathy. Femi had mastered the art of charm as a weapon, projecting innocence while masking years of control, abuse, and manipulation. But facts are relentless, and Tara's evidence waited patiently. The judge examined time-stamped voice notes, unedited videos of threats and assaults, medical reports confirming injuries, and witness statements that corroborated her story. Each piece was concrete, verifiable, and undeniable. Every carefully rehearsed smile Femi offered clashed violently with the cold, hard truth laid bare in the courtroom. Charm could not erase metadata, timestamps, or the voices of children who had lived the nightmare. And as the room absorbed the gravity of proof, even Femi's seasoned performance began to crack. His calm faltered, his confidence wavered, and for the first time, the man who had controlled his household with terror felt exposed, vulnerable, and finally powerless against the truth. The courtroom held its collective breath as Tara's lawyer reached for the final piece of evidence, a voice note recorded months ago, captured in real time during one of Femi's infamous rages. The room fell silent as the recording played. Femi's voice, once charming and controlled in public, echoed with anger, threats, and chilling commands. Make sure the children align their story. She will regret crossing me. Obedience is non-negotiable. Every word was a testament to years of manipulation and fear. Gasps filled the gallery. Even the most skeptical onlookers could no longer ignore the brutality masked behind his polished exterior. The voice note was not just evidence. It was a confession, undeniable and raw. Femi's expression, carefully curated for years, crumbled. His lawyer froze, searching for a loophole that didn't exist. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing, the weight of truth pressing down on every lie previously uttered. For Tara, listening to the recording brought a surge of validation and sorrow. Validation that she had not imagined, sorrow for the years lost in fear. But relief quickly followed. The tide had turned. The quiet months of documentation, prayer, and strategy had culminated in this moment. Proof that fear could be transformed into power and truth, when recorded and preserved, could shatter even the most carefully constructed mask. Femi's control was slipping, and the courtroom was the stage where the final act of his deception would unravel. Weeks of tension, evidence, and courtroom drama led to the moment everyone had waited for, the verdict. The judge's voice cut through the murmurs, steady, deliberate, carrying the weight of truth and justice. Femi, once untouchable in Lagos society, now sat rigid, a man stripped of the shields he had wielded for years. The judge outlined the consequences. A protection order keeping him away from Tara and the children, supervised visitation only after anger management therapy, referral to the Bar Association for disciplinary review, and formal criminal proceedings for assault and coercive control. Interim custody of the children went to Tara, ensuring their safety and stability. Financial responsibilities were enforced, and relocation support arranged. Every word was a nail sealing the end of Femi's unchecked power. In the gallery, a mixture of relief and disbelief swept through Tara, her family, and those who had supported her. Months of fear, prayer, and careful documentation had borne fruit. Femi's reputation, carefully cultivated for years, lay in fragments, exposed to the very community that once admired him. For Tara, it was more than a legal victory. It was proof that courage, strategy, and truth could overcome even the most seemingly invincible manipulator. The untouchable lawyer had fallen, and the family, once trapped in a shadow of fear, began the slow, delicate process of reclaiming life, freedom, and peace. The gavel's fall was more than a sound. It was a release. Tara exhaled for the first time in years, a deep, cleansing breath that carried away months of fear, tension, and despair. She had moved to her parents' home before the court date, a small sanctuary filled with the smells of home-cooked meals and the laughter of her children returning to life. The protection order meant she could finally sleep without anxiety curling around her chest. Every morning, the sun felt warmer, the air lighter. She began to reclaim pieces of herself, the smiles that had been stolen, the confidence that had been eroded, the sense of safety she had longed for in silence. For the children, walls that had felt suffocating now transformed into spaces of freedom, where laughter replaced whispered fears. Yet Tara knew that victory was only the beginning of rebuilding. Therapy sessions helped her identify and dismantle the emotional chains left by years of coercive control. She reestablished routines, restarted her small business, and cultivated a protective circle of family and trusted friends. The children began to thrive again. Chinidu laughing freely, the middle child finding solace in music, the youngest rediscovering innocence. Step by step, the mansion of fear faded from memory, replaced with a home rooted in security, love, and faith. Tara had survived the storm, and now, carefully and deliberately, she began the delicate work of transforming survival into a life reclaimed. Tara's journey of freedom was only beginning, and she knew that scars, both seen and unseen, would take time to fade. Therapy became her sanctuary, a place where she could voice fears that had been silenced for years and untangle the knots of manipulation that had clouded her mind. With each session, the weight of guilt and self-doubt lightened. She learned to recognize the subtle patterns of narcissistic abuse, to name them, and to reclaim control over her thoughts and emotions. Her faith, once tested by endless trials, became a wellspring of courage, guiding her in decisions and grounding her in hope. Slowly, the glow she had lost, the brightness in her eyes, the warmth in her smile, began to return, a reflection of inner strength taking root after years of shadow. The children watched their mother's transformation with awe and relief. They laughed without fear, spoke openly about their experiences, and began to feel safe in a home that was finally theirs. Tara found joy in the small, ordinary moments. Making breakfast without dread, reading bedtime stories with calm, and hearing laughter echo through their new sanctuary. Friends and family celebrated her resilience, but Tara knew that true healing came from within, from the daily commitment to self-care, prayer, and reflection. With faith and therapy intertwined, she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. The woman who had once trembled in silence now walked with a quiet confidence, radiant, unbroken, and free. The children, once trapped in fear and silence, began to rediscover the simple joys of childhood. Chinidu, the eldest, who had whispered words of warning to his mother in desperation, now spoke openly about his feelings and fears, finding a voice that had been suppressed for years. Music therapy became a refuge for the middle child, a safe space where emotions could be expressed through rhythm and melody instead of tears and anxiety. The youngest, who had trembled at raised voices and slammed doors, began to laugh freely again, the kind of innocent laughter that fills a home with warmth. Each small milestone, the first unguarded hug, a night of uninterrupted sleep, a spontaneous game in the living room, was a victory, a tiny yet powerful affirmation that the shadow of abuse was finally lifting. Tara watched her children with a mix of pride, relief, and quiet gratitude. She knew the road to full healing was long, but each day brought them closer to safety and emotional stability. Open conversations replaced fear-filled silence. Trust replaced suspicion. Love replaced anxiety. The home, once a cage of control and manipulation, now resonated with laughter, learning, and security. In guiding her children through therapy, patience, and consistent nurturing, Tara wasn't just restoring their childhoods. She was reclaiming their innocence, teaching them resilience, and planting seeds of courage that would last a lifetime. The darkness had lifted, and for the first time in years, the future felt bright, safe, and full of hope. Femi, once untouchable in Lagos society, began to feel the sharp edges of consequences he had long avoided. His professional network, carefully curated over decades, started to fray. Colleagues stopped returning calls. Commissioners and influential friends became distant, transferred, or disengaged. Even his pastor, who had often shielded him with public prayers and endorsements, was no longer available, leaving Femi isolated in ways he had never experienced. Reputation, the armor he wielded so effortlessly, began to rust under the weight of documented abuse, legal scrutiny, and public awareness. For the first time, Femi experienced helplessness, a reality where influence and charm no longer worked. Social circles whispered, "The lawyer who controlled everyone is now cornered." Clients hesitated. Some withdrew completely, afraid of association with a man now publicly exposed. At home, his once absolute dominance vanished. The children's laughter and Tara's quiet confidence became a constant reminder of the power he had lost. Femi tried charm, manipulation, even online statements to reclaim the narrative, but each attempt only revealed more cracks. Slowly, meticulously, the empire of intimidation he had built began to crumble. Not with a dramatic crash, but in small, undeniable fractures. What he had wielded as control turned into isolation, and the untouchable lawyer realized that truth, persistence, and courage could dismantle even the most formidable mask. Months of fear, strategy, and silent prayer culminated in a moment Tara had longed for: true, unshakable peace. Sitting on the balcony of her small apartment, the morning sun warming her face, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. Her children played outside, laughter spilling into the air, unguarded and joyful. For the first time, she could sip her tea without a racing heart, check her phone without anxiety, and take a deep, uninterrupted breath. The weight of years spent under Femi's control, the manipulation, gaslighting, and fear, had begun to lift, replaced by calm, certainty, and hope. Tara's smile returned, soft yet radiant, a reflection of resilience and triumph. This was not just survival, it was reclamation. Tara's steps were deliberate as she rebuilt routines, nurtured her children, and pursued her business ambitions. Therapy and faith intertwined to fortify her mind and spirit. Each day, she practiced boundaries, self-love, and reflection, slowly weaving back the pieces of a life nearly broken. Looking at her children's laughter, she whispered a quiet gratitude: "We are safe, we are free, and I am no longer afraid." The storm had passed, and Tara had emerged, not merely intact, but whole, glowing with a strength born of courage, perseverance, and the refusal to be silenced. Her life was hers again, and in that reclamation, she found the first true breath of peace. Tara's story is more than a personal triumph. It is a beacon for every woman navigating relationships that hide shadows behind charm. She learned, the hard way, to recognize the red flags early: controlling behavior disguised as care, constant monitoring, verbal manipulation, and the weaponization of children and faith. These patterns, subtle at first, can grow into cages that trap hearts, minds, and souls. Her journey reminds us that noticing discomfort, trusting instincts, and documenting experiences are not acts of paranoia. They are acts of courage. Faith, prayer, and a support network became her anchors, guiding her safely through danger while giving her the wisdom to act decisively. Liberation, Tara discovered, is not instantaneous. It is a careful, deliberate reclaiming of space, voice, and self-worth. For her, it involved therapy, legal strategy, family support, and patience, intertwined with spiritual resilience. She rebuilt not just her life, but her children's sense of safety, her own self-confidence, and her capacity to dream again. Her story challenges women to honor their intuition, protect themselves, and never accept fear as love. Tara's life stands as proof. Even the most oppressive shadows can be overcome, and courage, strategy, and faith will always light the way toward freedom. Every woman deserves this reclamation, this life restored. Tara's journey shows us the power of courage, strategy, and faith, but every story is stronger when shared. If her story inspired you, taught you to recognize red flags, or gave you hope for your own life or someone you love, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to support more real-life empowerment stories. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification icon so you never miss stories of resilience, truth, and life lessons from across Africa. Also, tell us, which part of the world are you watching from? Say it in the comment below. I read all comments. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Together, let's shine light on hidden truths and celebrate the strength of women everywhere. Thank you for watching.